Hey, how's it going? Zach D Productions here, and I'm here for a ranking video for you guys. So for this ranking, I'll be ranking all the albums from the band live. Now keep in mind, I will not be including the Public Affection album, basically the album before they officially became live, you could say. Also keep in mind, I don't think Live has ever released a bad album. Yes, they do have albums better than others, but there's not really any album in their catalog that I think is just hot garbage or anything. I mean, I'd say that their weakest album is decent at best. So they do have their sort of meh albums, but even those ones I don't think are all bad. They still do have their redeeming factors to them. Now, Live is a band that I am pretty new to. I want to say I got into them early last month, so obviously I haven't been a fan for very long, but I've been listening to these guys a lot recently. And I think they're a very underrated band as well, and I actually want to say they're from my area. They're at least from the States, as far as what I've read, but yeah, they kind of do have that sound to them as well, and maybe that's why I kind of gravitate towards their music, but yeah, definitely a great band. So we'll be going from worst to best based on my opinion, so let's go ahead and get started. So what I have last at the bottom, I gotta go with the most recent one, The Turn. This is the only one without their original vocalist Ed, and this album here, again, like I said before, even their weaker stuff I think is decent at best. So yeah, this album here, I'd say it's decent. Not the most memorable collection of songs on this album, but still, I think it's, all right. It's definitely not one of their best, though. And I think I can speak for many Live fans when I say that this is definitely one of their weakest. But yeah, it's decent, songwriting, it's solid, but it's just not that memorable, and that's really my main complaint with it. It's not the most memorable album of theirs. But next we have Songs from Black Mountain. I actually think this album is pretty decent, actually. I mean, there are a couple songs that I do return to from this album, Now, again, this album here, there are some stuff on this album that are not that memorable, but this album still does have some highlights, though, like Mystery, which is definitely one of my favorites on the album. Really love the melody in that song. I also really like the closing track as well, Night of Nights. I think that song is pretty good as well. Kind of gives me some Deftones vibes. I'm not sure if I'm the only one that hears it, but I don't know. I kind of hear a little bit of Deftones in that song, but yeah, I think that song is pretty good. But besides those songs, I don't really return to much from this album, but again, the songwriting's solid, it's all there, but, there are some skippable tracks on this album, and this was, of course, the album, the last album with their original vocalist, Ed, which, maybe not the best send-off for him, but you know what? I'd still say it's a decent album, so there you go, Songs from Black Mountain. Next, we have Birds of Prey. A pretty good album, I'd say. I mean, you got songs on here like Heaven and She. She is probably my favorite on the album. And I also really do like the closing track, What Are We Fighting For? I think that this song is really good. So, yeah. Kind of like with Black Mountain, this album here, there are maybe a couple skippable tracks, but overall I'd say the album is pretty good for what it is. So, Birds of Prey. Next we have V or 5. This album here I actually do like quite a bit. I mean, I wouldn't say that every song on this album has really strong replay value, but this album here, it definitely has some great songs. Of course, you have Deep Enough, you have Overcome, which is a nice piano ballad. I really do enjoy that song. Very melodic and emotional. You also have Nobody Knows, which is another favorite of mine on the album. But yeah, I mean, these songs alone, I think, make this album deserving to be higher than the albums that I mentioned previously, because I know that there are some people that might say that The previous two albums I've mentioned are better than this, but for me, this album here just has more memorable songs, more songs that I go back to, and yeah, pretty solid musicianship and everything like that. So yeah, so V. Next we have Secret Psalmody, which is a pretty good album. I mean, in this album here, Live took their sound in a darker direction. It's a lot more, I guess, slower and moodier. I mean, you got Rattlesnake, Lakini's Juice, which is maybe one of their heaviest songs. You know, I like the main riff in that song. You also got Sentry. You also have Turn My Head, which is another more melodic song. And you also have Ghost. But yeah, some pretty good stuff on this album for sure. So, Secret Psalmody. Next we have The Distance Is Here. This album here, now the reason that this album here is ranked high on my ranking is because, well, this does feature some of my favorite live songs, of course. Like Run to the Water and Dance With You. Dance With You is another emotional song, nice ballad. You also have Dolphins Cry, which is another a fan favorite on here, but yeah, really good stuff. And yeah, a bit more accessible as well, especially with the singles like Dolphins Cry and Run to the Water. Very accessible tracks, very good songs if you're, I guess, wanting to check out live and, you know, you want something to start with. Those songs would be very good to start with, I'd say. But yeah, some of their best work, I think, is on this album. So, The Distance Is Here, really good one. Next, we have Mental Jewelry. And I dig the rawness of this album. It's just good old raw sounding alternative rock music. I mean, you have Pain Lies on the Riverside, Operation Spirit, The Beauty of Grey, which is maybe one of my favorite live songs. I really love the melody to that song. You also have Tired of Me, which I think is also great and another one of my favorites on here. But yeah, a lot of great hooks, great melodies, stuff like that going on here. So Mental Jewelry, definitely a great album. But of course, you guys probably know what's at number one. Throwing Copper, which was the album that got me into live. Now, the song I Alone was basically the song that got me hooked on to live. If we're talking songs in particular, that song was basically the song that got me hooked on to this band. Really like the melody to that song, but of course you have other great tracks on here like Selling the Drama and Lightning Crashes and All Over You. All Over You, probably another one of my favorite live songs as well. But yeah, this album here definitely has some of their best work. Some great melodies, great hooks and everything like that. So Throwing Copper, definitely a great album. And yeah, another great introduction if you're wanting to check out live, I'd say. If you're wanting to check out a full album from this band, this would be a good start. And I do believe that this was actually my first live album, so there you go. Throwing Copper is my number one, so let me know what you think. How would you rank Live's albums? Are you a fan of Live? Feel free to let me know. So on that note, thank you for watching and have a good one.